Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk with you about not micromanaging your creative employees. I'm going to get into some of the signs and symptoms of what micromanagement tends to look like, as well as how to shift how you lead other people, how you communicate as an entrepreneur, as a manager, or even if you're the creative yourself who's feeling micromanaged. This video will help you understand how to approach and navigate those situations better. Hey everyone, I'm David Sherry. I help high achievers continue to grow without sacrificing their lifestyle or burning out. So if you're interested in some tips for becoming a better leader or manager, learning to delegate or learning to grow your business, please subscribe, and I am back every week with a video just like this. All right, let's talk about micromanagement. Let's talk about some symptoms that I tend to see with leaders who are micromanaging. Maybe you're on the other side of this as a creative and you're feeling boxed in, you're feeling micromanaged. Let's go through a few versions of what this tends to look like. The first is you are getting pinged at all hours of the day. If you're constantly getting messages via WhatsApp and Telegram and Slack and email, that does not really allow for the creative space necessary to be productive at work. So the first symptom of micromanagement is getting pinged at all hours of the day by your boss or by your manager. Or if you're a leader, reflect and ask yourself, how many times am I messaging my creative employees or contractors per day? The second symptom of micromanagement is when you feel like you have to approve every single thing that gets done, right? You're approving every email, you're approving every message, you're approving every little drop of creative. And so if you're somebody who is a creator and you're having to go through this process of always getting things signed off, or if you're a leader and you feel like I can't trust these creative employees or contractors to get things done the right way, so they always have to pass through me as a filter, you might be ranging into the camp of micromanagement. The next symptom is never being happy. If you're working with an employee or if you're working for a manager or boss, and it just never feels like something goes right. It never feels like things are done well. It never feels like you can celebrate the wins because your boss is always unhappy or you're always unhappy with your employee. That's another symptom that micromanagement might be at the root of that emotional problem. And last, we all know the blame game. Anytime something goes wrong, people are pointing fingers at each other. Nobody's really taking responsibility, and this perpetuates this problem of micromanagement. So what can we do about this? How do we navigate not being somebody who's a micromanager, or if you're working for a boss who is this style, how do we improve communication? And this is so important today because with COVID and everybody working from home, now people aren't in the office. And in some ways, it's almost like micromanagement really dialed up a notch because of the insecurity that leaders might feel not having their employees close by. So I think it's a topic that's even more important than ever. And for my background, I've actually hired dozens, if not hundreds, of creative types. I'm talking the most creative, sort of, artistic, whether it's, photographers, videographers, people who do murals, people who really are art focused and creative, who hate to be micromanaged. So I really had to learn a bunch of things about how to manage creators appropriately so that I got the best possible result. And they also had a great experience in working with me so that we could continue to work together and collaborate on important projects. And I'm going to get into a few things that I learned about working with creators, managing creators, that I found to be very effective. My number one strategy for working with creative types is to spend way more time upfront than you think. And there's a term by Seth Godin that I really liked, which is called thrashing. And he's got this great story about how you spend a lot of time as a team thrashing up front, working through the project, getting aligned, really just planning the work that's going to be done. And once that planning phase is done, you shift into a doing phase. And what happens is people tend to mix these two things up. Instead of spending a lot of time up front, getting on the same page, they send somebody off to just start working on something without really envisioning up front what it is that you're actually creating. Then when the creative comes back with some ideas, it turns into a brainstorming session again, right? Because the boss says, or you as the leader say, that's not what I was looking for. Go back to the drawing board. Then the creator goes off again, starts creating something, and this cycle repeats. And so what you really want to do is create a phase initially in the project where you just spend time planning and getting aligned on what the vision is for this project. And if you can thrash and work through the ideas in that phase, if you can go back and forth, if you can use mood boards and inspiration and really align on what the vision is, then you shift into a phase of letting the creative do their thing. So I always tell people when I hire them, we're going to spend as much time up front as possible. We're going to sync up on what the vision is. And then I'm going to let you off on your own. I'm going to, sort of disappear from view because it's your time to own this project and run with it. Now, if you have anything you need in terms of support, of course I'm there, but I see it as a failure of us not syncing up initially in the planning phase if things don't really hit the target or connect with what it is that we're trying to do. Now, you might ask, hey, that sounds like you're putting a lot of trust into the creator, and I just don't feel like I can trust that they're going to get it done right. I don't feel like they're going to perform to their best of their abilities. If I just let them off the hook and give them space, how do I know they're really going to be do something great, create something amazing for myself or my company? And what I'd say to that is this is where the hiring comes in and why hiring is so important. One thing I found in hiring and working with dozens of creatives, being a creative type myself, is you want to look for people who already know how to successfully do what it is that you're hoping to achieve. So I'll give you a simple example. It's not going to align with everything, but I think it helps illustrate the point. I've hired a few different mural makers for projects before. And there's a very obvious idea here, which is if you want a mural for your office, or if you want to get something painted on a big wall, like graffiti on a wall, it makes sense to hire the person who's already done 100 walls just like the style that you want. And there's an artist here in LA that I like a lot who's got this very fun, loose, kind of sketchy type style. And the easiest thing to do when you're seeking to have something creative done is to go to that person and say, hey, I love the work that you've already done. I've seen the last 50 walls that you've painted. I want you to do that exact style, the style that you've created and are so good at. Just do it for me now. Just do it in this context. So I'm not asking you to be somebody different. I'm not asking you to come up with a different set of skills. I'm asking you to do what you do best on behalf of my company, on behalf of this project. And if you do that, then inherently there is trust that they're going to get the thing done the right way because you've seen the evidence. You've seen them perform that. The same thing might be for, let's say, a podcast, right? The best way to hire a producer or an editor for a podcast is to say, I like the other podcasts that I've seen you edit, and I just want that same style with a little bit of tweaks done for us. So hiring is a very important part of this process, and there's a lot of conflict that tends to happen and a lot of micromanagement that tends to happen when you don't hire the right person, because then you're asking a creative to be someone they're not, right? If you're a graffiti style artist versus a loose handheld paint, I'm not going to ask you to be the other person or the other style that you're not, because that's just not going to go that well. Now, we talked about planning up front and doing all the thrashing before the project actually kicks off, then shifting into a phase where you're trusting the creator to get their work done, giving them space, not pinging them all the time, giving them more space for deep work. We talked about how you can trust the creator more because you've already seen evidence of their work beforehand. Now let's talk about following up on the work when it's actually created. Let's talk about feedback. Let's talk about how to handle the reaction to the work not necessarily being exactly what you want. So you've done the two first steps right, and you feel like, man, the thing that they came back with is still not what I'm looking for. I feel like this creator is better than what they're giving me. I feel like they didn't do their best work on this project. And a lot of times what people do is they focus just on that work. They criticize the work, right? We micromanage by saying, this isn't good, that's not good, I don't like this. And while that's instructive for future work and future iterations and getting the project across the finish line, What I find is really feedback ultimately is most productive when it's about a process change that can happen the next time you do a project. So let's say you're working with a new podcast editor, you aligned on the vision up front, you've already seen they've done work just like the type of work that you've always wanted, and they come back to you with a sound file and it just doesn't really connect for you. It just doesn't feel like they did a good job or they really got you what you wanted. Now, it is helpful to talk about what you like and what you don't like, but what I find is that you want to talk about that in the framing of process. So the productive conversation here is instead to say, hey, there's certain elements of this podcast that I don't feel like are hitting the mark. The next time we do an episode, I'd love to see the podcast have a slightly different audio, have a slightly different intro track, have this be different. Here's the question you can ask. What is it that we can change about our process that will help you deliver that result? Did I not get enough material to you up front? Do we not have enough music available for you to choose from? Was I not clear enough in my instructions? Right? So instead of playing the blame game like we talked about earlier, instead you're asking process-related questions and checking with the creator and saying what process would be supportive of you making your best work that didn't exist this go around when we were running this project that led to the work that we felt like was subpar. And I suppose the place I'll end on is, of course, if you are planning correctly up front, if you're giving them space to create and you trust that they have done work just like what you want, and you're providing feedback related to process, and the creator still isn't providing what you want, or if you're the creator, it's still just not gelling with that client, sometimes things just aren't a good fit. Sometimes that's a sign, hey, maybe this isn't actually the right alignment and the right collaboration here, so I should find somebody else. And that's totally okay too. Hiring, managing, working with creators, being a creator, and working for a micromanaging boss, these are difficult areas of communication and process that we need to figure out if we can create our best work and continue to grow. If you have any questions about micromanagement, something you experience, how to get the best out of your employees, something I didn't really touch on in this video, leave a comment below. I would love to interact with you there. And of course, subscribe for more videos like this every week. I'll be back again very soon. Later.